The World Cup is over, and this is one to remember. Let's relive our favorite moments, and for that, we bring in CBS Sports reporter Sandra Herrera to talk us through hers as well. Sandra, let's go ahead and start with you. What was your favorite story of this tournament?
Oh, you know where I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay in the region. I'm going to go with CONCACAF, and I'm going with Jamaica making it all the way to the knockout rounds. I was absolutely unsure of what we were going to witness from this Reggae Girls side. I know that they were into a group where some of us were alluding to it as a group of chaos, possibly a group of death. It wasn't going to be an easy road, but it wasn't just that they got to the knockout rounds. It was how they did it. I think they were viewed as a team that was going to play organized, right, and try to make sure that they could counter with Bunny Shaw. But then we didn't see Bunny Shaw for a little bit, and they had to face a little bit of adversity there. But all the efforts to crowdfund and get them to this point, and then to kind of be rewarded with all of that good performance and then make it to the knockout rounds, I thought it was an epic storyline.
It definitely was, and I'm going to add to that. I'm going to go with Nigeria for being my favorite story and team to come out of this World Cup. I thought that they overcame so much, which we learned after the fact, and being friends with some of the players, I knew what they were going through all along, but the fact that they were dealing with all of this and still had the success and having some huge wins and debuts in this World Cup, that I think it's just an amazing story, and I'm so proud of this team and of where they're coming from and where they're going to go and how they're speaking up after the fact. I think that it's going to set precedent for how other teams operate moving forward and just demand better and elevate the standard, and they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in tournaments in the future and games to come.
All right, well, I see you with Nigeria, and I'm going to stay in Africa because my favorite story was from South Africa, but it was a player's story. It was THEMBI KGATLANA. This is a player who tore her Achilles tendon last year in the African Cup of Nations. And she came back. I think they tightened that Achilles tendon up because she was faster than ever before. She was a player that other teams could not stop. A goal and an assist in the last two group stage matches. It pushed Bayana into a historic first ever knockout rounds. Her assist versus Italy, it's this little slip ball she plays in. It's better than the game-winning goal she gets just minutes later. But the one thing I do want to say, she had a really hard time. She lost multiple family members the weeks leading up to the World Cup. She decided to go, and she, quote, said this, quote, "I came back from a very brutal injury to be here. I played for the country to represent every single girl that wanted to be here, to make history with the girls for South Africa."
Chills.
Yeah. I love me some THEMBI KGATLANA energy.
It's so good. It is so good. There are so many good stories throughout this World Cup. We had 8 debutante nations making their way into this World Cup, so I had to follow one of them, the Philippines, a story that warms my heart. They inspired so many young players around the world, and especially in the Philippines. It was their first World Cup qualification. They earned their first World Cup goal. Shout out Serena Bolden. Their first World Cup win, and that win came over a top 25 nation in New Zealand, and they did it all in such a short span of time. We talked about Spain, how they did it over the course of 3 cycles. The Philippines did all of that in the span of 18 months or so, and they went on to continue to inspire young girls and players because so many of the Philippines players are American-born. It's incredible, all these stories we have.
Oh, so amazing, but I just want to talk about the host nation. Australia hosting this, co-host with New Zealand, but the impact that they have had on the country and the way that they view not only women's sports or women's football, but just sport in general, women's sport in the country. I spoke to my host sister. I talked about it on Morning Footy when I lived there a few years ago, and she said that it's absolutely changed everything for the country and for women's sport. And so for her to be at 14 years old, to notice how the country went around and got around this whole project, and how beautiful it has been for them to experience this, has just been so beautiful to witness and to kind of check in with the parents. They're like, "Jenny, I wish you were here. It's the most amazing thing ever." And oh, gosh, I love that story. But Sandra, tell me about your favorite player. There's so many players that you could point out here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go with NAOMI GIRMA out of the U.S. women's national team. I think I leaned into that after I realized how much disappointment I felt that we weren't going to get to continue to see her play through the remainder of the knockout rounds with this United States women's national team. I think there were a number of players for this U.S. side that we were all looking at to kind of take that next step, to kind of introduce themselves as that next generation. And I really believe that NAOMI GIRMA was the player to kind of go ahead and leave her mark, to kind of play alongside players who have been there already, whether it was Alyssa Nair behind her or Julie Ertz next to her, and kind of just rose to the occasion when a lot was really asked of this player on such a quick turnaround.
Sandra, I completely agree. And speaking of players that rose to the occasion and next generation, I have to go with Selma Peruelo. She was a force to be reckoned with this tournament, and not just this tournament, the U17s, the U20s, and now the full team. She has won 3 World Cups, and I think it's only going to go up from here. Whether she's coming off of the bench and scoring goals or assisting, setting up goals, she has been so good for the Spanish side and added so much dynamicism to this team with her ability to run in behind, her hold-up play, and also technically how good she is and how well she reads the game. And I think the sky's the limit for her. It's going to be great to see her moving forward with this team.
Okay, I'm going to stay with champions too. I'm going to go to the midfield though. I loved JENNI Hermoso in this tournament. I thought that she really was one of the key catalysts to how this Spanish side got forward. 3 goals, 2 assists, excuse me. She was just doing the most. Whether it was as a 9 or as a 10, she could float into space, and her technical ability to get out of tight situations and keep the ball for a team to advance it up the field. This is a 33-year-old who is the only player on this Spanish squad to play in Mexico. She has left Spain to go play somewhere else. Everybody's talking about how she's too old for this team. Well, she just went and bossed it up and got the silver ball in the World Cup. It was really fun to watch her play.
Jordan, I know you made Sandra happy with the JENNI Hermosa and the Liga MX Femenil shout out.
Yeah.
Sandra, I'm also going to make you happy because my favorite player to watch was Colombian forward Linda Caicedo, the 18-year-old superstar. I know you would like that one. This was her 3rd World Cup in the span of a year. U17, the U20 editions that happened in 2022. She had a lot of expectations coming into this World Cup with Colombia as well, and she lived up to those expectations. She gets the win for her team, and in the first two games, she scores 2 goals. Remember that banger against Germany? Inside the box, she splits the defenders and finds the upper 90. This was a player that did all of that and beat cancer at 15 years old, and you can still watch her. She's signed with Real Madrid, and her ceiling is incredibly high.
Sandra, I have another Spanish speaker for you here. I don't know if Naomi GIRMA knows Spanish, but I feel like we have a vibe here. We're all talking Spanish speakers. I know we vibe about speaking Spanish, but Aitana Bonmati is absolutely incredible. She is the golden ball winner for a reason, but she also was the MVP in the Champions League. She's also the Supercopa MVP. She's a World Cup winner. She's a Champions League winner, Supercopa winner, a domestic league winner. She has done it all recently, and in this final specifically, she had 95% pass completion.
Wow.
To just show you how flawless she is in that midfield, and I know she combines well with JENNI Hermoso, but gosh, what a player to watch. And Pep Guardiola had comments on her as well, saying that she's a football player who has me completely in love with her for the way that she plays. I would say she is like the women's Andres Iniesta playing for Barcelona, which what compliment is better than being compared to Iniesta? That's someone who we all love to see in that midfield. Absolutely incredible. Guys, everyone's player is so incredible and like exciting to look forward to.
Can I add a player that I think we need to
honorable mention?
Go.
Mary Fowler.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mary Fowler
Great
was
choice.
so good in this tournament because she had to play a really big role that she was going to play a role for Australia, but with Sam Kerr out, she stepped up, and now I read tweets where guys were putting on black gloves to go to the bars to go watch the Matildas, the Tillies play. So I loved it.
Sandra, let's get to your favorite moment here.
All right, we're talking about Spanish speakers, so you know I'm going to go with a Spanish-speaking country. Espanol is better for football, in my opinion, but let's stick with Colombia. Look, I was riding with them in the beginning of this tournament to go make some upsets, and there was no bigger upset than when they got that win over Germany. They opened up the group stage with a victory against South Korea, but there was something about taking it to a European side. It brought back a lot of memories for me of Mexico over Germany in Russia's World Cup, and then you have a Latin American side taking down a pretty big European contender. It was a massive moment in their program's history, and to do it and get all 3 points in such a high dramatic finish. Yes, Caicedo getting that goal, as Lisa already alluded to, but getting that game winner with Manuela Vanegas, it really says a lot about some of these players who have really tried to elevate their game with this program. A handful of them playing in Spain, and the 2 of them connecting in this game. most of these players play their club soccer in Colombia, but there's something about having players to help you elevate that expectation on the pitch, and we saw it all come to life in this game.
Great choice, Sandra. I have to go with Brazil's third goal against Panama.
Yes.
Yes, I
Let's
think
go.
that was the most fun goal for me because it was such a team goal and it was in classic Brazil style. You had Debinha on the side with a 1-2 with the ball into Ari Borges and ultimately the finish from JOAO. And you saw it all over the internet, all over the world, and it's just classic Brazilian football that you love to see and makes you really just love the sport.
Yeah, I could watch that goal on repeat. The other goal I could watch on repeat was Sam Kerr finally getting a start and showing the world what we all knew she could do. The biggest storyline coming into the World Cup when it talks about on the field was Sam Kerr gets injured before the opening game for Australia, so she wasn't able to play with that calf injury, and they worked her back in. But this goal, she starts in the semifinal. It's 64 minutes in. And this is only something Sam Kerr can do. She dribbles half the field, beats everybody by herself, and then shoots from 35 yards out. And it was a spectacular goal. Everyone was ready to go wild. Australia deserved that because this team was remarkable, and they deserved that moment with the best goal scorer in women's football right now.
One of my favorite moments of this World Cup actually happened post-match in the Brazil-Jamaica match when Jamaica knocked out Brazil going into the round of 16 or after the round of 16 when Bunny Shaw and Marta shared a special moment. They chatted after this game, as Shaw saying that Marta was an inspiration not only to Shaw growing up but to the entire Caribbean, and Marta telling Bunny Shaw, hey, I've been watching Jamaica, I've been cheering for you and watching you since you qualified for the World Cup. You would get knocked down continuously, and we know of the struggles with Jamaica and their federation, and Marta's so impressed with them passing that torch along, and Marta's words as she leaves her 6th and final World Cup, saying that she didn't have an idol growing up, let alone a female idol, and now, Jordan, you talked about Sam Kerr, all of these players that we have been talking about for weeks on Attacking Third and the world has been watching are now idols to all of these young players.
I'm going to second that with that moment was incredibly beautiful. Mine was right before that when Jamaica beat out Brazil to continue on in the tournament. I know that Sandra already spoke about that earlier, and you're talking about that moment, so I don't need to get into it that much because it really was something so beautiful for CONCACAF, for Jamaica, for the federation team who has been fighting for so long for them to get equal treatment and other stuff in that Jamaican locker room.
I think it was the Lauren Donaldson cartwheel that you really liked, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. You know what?
Cartwheel.
That's a top moment, absolutely. Yep. But thank you so much, Sandra. We loved reliving these moments with you, and I'm sure that we're going to continue to do so in all our shows to come because this was a World Cup to remember without a doubt.